Hi, everyone. Welcome to the JODY podcast. I'm Joe. Oh,
That's
go
okay.
ahead. She wanted to go first. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm D.
I'm Joe. And we're so happy to have you guys back. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, share, comment. We're so happy that our family is growing and we welcome all of our new subscribers. Happy New Year!
Yes. I can't believe it's 2026 already.
Woo
It's
woo!
crazy how fast the years fly by.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. But I mean, we say that every year. I feel like every year it's, oh my God, that year went by so fast. It's like, do we ever have a different story? It's crazy.
I think though there's something about becoming an adult because you remember as a kid you wanted the time to fly by,
And it was
but
so
then
slow.
yes, it was
Yeah.
so slow. But then when you get into adulthood, it's like slow down.
You need to calm down. But no, happy to have another year under our belts.
Yep.
But of course, New Year's are not without new problems. So I think that a lot of people, when they see the new year coming, especially when you said what you said about the years going by so fast, sometimes you're like, oh my God, it's getting closer to my goal or my timeline or where I should be hitting this milestone and I'm not there yet. And we start to have crash out moments. A little bit of a
We
crash
spiral.
out. And we spiral. We go down the rabbit hole.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. You know, of course, there's always the new year, new me, and, you know, all of these New Year's resolutions. But what about when we make these determinations where it's like, all right, this is finally going to be the year that I meet my God-ordained spouse?
Bro, I see those videos on YouTube all the time. Literally, the title will be like, if you're seeing this, God knew that it was your time. And I'm like, oh, really? And I go watch it. But there are like 20 of them that come out every day.
You know what I find interesting though? Last year, there was like so much. There was like an influx of, I would say, YouTube accounts, influencers, etc. You know, I don't know what to call them, not biblical figures, but it's like people like in the faith, like, you know, pastors, ministers, prophets, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And they were kind of saying, oh, yeah, 2025, that's going to be the year of an influx of like relationships and marriages and all this jazz. And I know there are people on the other side of that screen like wondering what happened because they're still waiting for that to unfold or to manifest. So I don't know. What do we do? How do we approach these things?
That's a great question. I think when you're a Christian, one of the things that you quickly have to learn is you are not in control. I think that sometimes it's natural to plan. As human beings, we're always going to have an idea in our head.
True.
But one of the things that I feel like I've learned on this journey is that I'm going to make my plans, but God has plans that supersede even my own.
Right.
So sometimes when it's the new year, I can remember it would be like New Year's Eve, and I would be like, you know, praying for, okay, the next year, here's what I'm hoping, here's what I'm expecting. And then God chooses to do something completely different. And it's kind of like you
Surprise.
just have to, right? It's like a surprise that sometimes you don't think you want. But again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about in the last episode, which is you have to trust God and trust that He knows what He's doing, even if it doesn't really make sense to you right now.
Yeah. You know, one of the things too, but then again, everybody's different on this. And I don't know, maybe we should take a poll. Some people I've realized like surprises and some people don't.
Yes.
I like
true.
to be surprised. Sometimes I'm not going to lie. I do wish I had a timeline where I'm like, okay, God, it's going to be this time or this time, but surprise me within that window.
Yes.
But at the same time, I feel like as if I love being surprised. Like sometimes when I think about, you know, like when I hear other people's love stories, one of the things that stands out the most to me is when someone did not see it coming. Some way, somehow, God blocks all of your like knowledge or you coming to see something and it's like you weren't expecting it and you were looking busted at the grocery store and something falls down and then boom, somebody picks it up for you and oh, there goes your husband. You know, but I think that a lot of times people get so worried or concerned about controlling the time that they
Mm-hmm.
don't let God just surprise them.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's true. It's kind of weird. I like surprises, but I don't like surprises. So
Hmm.
I think
I'm sure
that,
people can relate.
yeah, I think that what you said is true about letting God do it.
Hmm.
And you know how, like, when they talk about like movies, we talk about the meet cute when the guy meets the girl in a
Hmm.
romantic comedy or movie or whatever it
Hmm.
is. It's like we don't believe that God will do a good one, or we don't believe that God will bring a good one. So then our tendency is to kind of think, I have to make it happen,
Hmm.
as opposed to trusting that God will.
I'm wondering if people really don't believe, though, that God will bring a good person. I
Mm-hmm.
think people believe God can and will bring a good person. I think most people fear they won't be attracted to the person God brings.
Yes.
But, I don't know if people are concerned about his ability to pick a good man. I don't know.
I think they say that they believe God can pick a good man, but the way they move doesn't necessarily support that. At least that's what I've seen.
But a good, like, but wait, do they doubt God bringing a good man, or do they doubt God bringing a good man that's also attractive?
That's a great question.
Because I
Maybe
think
it's
that
both.
I think that I could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I think when it comes to God bringing a man, I honestly, and maybe we should take a poll on that too. I don't know if people will feel comfortable putting in the comments, because I know that's very putting you in a weird space, but I honestly think most people believe God can bring a good man or a good woman to them, depending on who's watching this podcast. But I also think that people feel like whoever God brings is going to be somebody I'm not attracted to. He's going to have this and this and that because God looks at the heart. I think that's what basically, that's what, I mean, come on,
They're
women.
like,
Like,
God brought me a troll.
exactly. People are afraid of the troll or the monster. But at the same time, the tree monster. Oh gosh, not a real monster. But at the same time, I think that if you are worried about that, I also feel like that shows a lack of knowledge about God's character. Because
Yes.
it doesn't mean that everyone's going to find your spouse attractive. And I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it means that whoever God brings will be someone who is attractive to you.
Yeah. But I also think I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I read a lot online, comments, YouTube videos, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also dependent on age. I think that if you're someone who's in your 40s,
Mm.
50s, or even 60s and still waiting, I do think those people doubt that God can bring them a good guy. It's almost like they don't think good guys exist.
But
It's
do
like
they?
there's a shortage
But
of
is
good
it that
guys.
they're doubting that God can bring them a good guy, or are they doubting that God can bring them a guy at all because of their age?
I think it's a mix.
Oh.
I'm not sure, but I'm just basing this on comments that I've read because I love to hear different perspectives. And I've seen some comments where people really do feel like they're just not out there.
Okay.
But I think that, again, like you said, trusting God and knowing his character are two things that enables you to get through the waiting period or the delay. If you trust God and know his character, you're set. Because
Yeah.
if you know God's character, you know that he loves you. You know that he wants the best for you. You know that he can read people's hearts. And you know that if he created you, he can pick the perfect match or complement to you.
Mm-hmm.
If, however, you struggle to trust God or you don't know his character, then waiting on God is going to feel like playing Russian roulette.
I I could see that. Don't get me wrong. I just think I mean, I'm not going to speak for everyone because obviously everyone has a different perspective on this.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think sometimes we're not fully aware of everything that goes into our fears or our concerns. Because,
Mm-hmm.
for example, um, there are people who, during their waiting period, they feel like God isn't sending anybody. So it's like, I'm not going out on dates. I'm not meeting anyone.
Yeah.
I start conversations on dating apps and then they
Mm-hmm.
ghost me. It doesn't go anywhere. So they kind of feel like I'm not sure God can bring me anyone, period, because they just don't have that experience. Like they don't even deal with bad guys. It's like they deal with no guys. And a lot of times I think they internalize that, like almost to mean that they're not good enough or they're not worthy, which is
Mm-hmm.
wrong,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, because I actually feel like sometimes that's a form of protection. I
Mm-hmm.
think God is aware of how much we can handle, or
Yes.
He knows if a situation will hurt us,
Mm-hmm.
but there will be a potential good impact from it. So, like, we'll grow from it.
Mm-hmm.
But other times, the situation will just result in hurt, either because
Yes.
it's too severe or too grave, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're not prepared to grow. Like, there are certain situations when people go through them, they will not grow from it. It might pull them even farther away from God,
Yeah.
or may build up bitterness and resentment,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to doing the work that God intended for those types of circumstances, to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that some people do believe, like, nah, I don't think He can bring me anybody. I take anybody at this point. I've even
Yeah.
seen videos and even things on social media where people will say things like, at this point, I just needed to be a man. Like, they're just that, because they're just like, I'm not getting anything. So one of the things that I think we have to take into consideration
Mm-hmm.
is what the experience is across the span of women. So
Mm-hmm.
there are those who feel like God can't bring anyone at all because
Mm-hmm.
there's no one at their door.
Yeah.
And then there are those who think that whoever God brings, like the Christians or the people that they date that are believers, they feel like, I'm not attracted to them. And I even remember dating someone, and one of the things that he said was he did all of the things. So he was very, by the book and doing everything God's way. And here comes time for him. He's ready to settle down and do all these things, and he's just not attracted to anybody. And he's like, so what? Am I going to have to just settle for someone that I'm not attracted to? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of understanding, no, you don't have to settle, because God wants to give us the best. But are you willing to wait on His timeline?
And I think the answer for most people is no. They're not willing to wait. And I think it's human nature. And I'm speaking as a person. You already know I am not the
Mm-hmm.
most patient. When I want something, I want it right now. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning as a Christian that the wait is not meant to torture us. It's meant to grow us. So even when you were talking
Mm-hmm.
about like a person who goes through a dry season where they feel like they've got no prospects at all, that has happened to me before. And one of the things that I learned in that drought season was to tackle some of the negative beliefs and misconceptions I had about myself. So it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like God used that period to help me recognize what are some of the underlying beliefs that you have about yourself that
True.
maybe have never been brought to the surface. But when a drought happens, the river is dry. So all of the things that were at the bottom of the river, you can see them.
Mm-hmm.
So for myself, it's is it that you feel like you're not good enough? And that's why you don't have prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Is it that you're not attractive? Is it that you're abnormal? Is it that you're defective?
Yeah.
Whatever those ideas are, God wants to bring them to the surface so that you can dismantle them
Mm-hmm.
based on the truth in God's word. But
Yeah.
if whenever you're having a dry season or you're not really having any prospects, you rush to latch on to any Tom, Dick, or Harry you find, you never get to tackle those negative beliefs, and then it governs the way you date.
Yeah, that's true. Um, a lot of people are so unaware of that, though. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't, and I do believe God can bring a lot of them to your attention.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think while we're in the dating season, some of it will come to light and some of it won't come to light. Going
Yeah.
back to something we said in one of the earlier episodes, some things will only be revealed in marriage. So there's certain insecurities. You'll still find them coming up even
Yep.
after you've gotten married, even after you've worked on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it plays a big role. So I could see how, God is bringing all these things to the surface. However,
Mm-hmm.
it's such a challenge to be self-aware. I don't
Mm.
think a lot of people recognize how much knowledge and insight it takes to be self-aware. You know how you see it? Watch. All the time on social media, you'll see people posting things and they'll be like, oh, yeah, it's whatever. I protect my peace. It's about my boundaries. It's about this and that, and so on and so forth. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for boundaries. I believe in
Yes.
boundaries. But I think people, how could I say it?
Mm-hmm.
Not overuse, but I think sometimes people don't understand the true reason for boundaries or the meaning behind it. It's so interesting because one time I was in session and I asked one of my clients, I'm like, what is the purpose of a boundary? And they were saying what boundary. I'm like, no, but what's the purpose? Why do you set a boundary?
Mm-hmm.
And she was honest. She was like, to be honest, I don't know. And I said, boundaries are to protect. Boundaries are to set limits.
Yeah.
And I realized that a lot of people, when they say things, it's not even for the intended purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say someone's like, I protect my peace at all costs. You getting blocked. That's not the purpose of a boundary. And you're assuming that you never do things that merit blocking.
That's true.
That's
true.
And it's one of those things where in relationships, that can significantly hinder you. If you're unaware of how you come across to people, or you're posting posts on, I don't know, IG or TikTok that are meant to be subliminal messages, but those messages still apply to you.
I mean, when you said it's very hard to be self-aware, I actually think it's hard for human beings to be self-aware. And there's a verse in the Bible in Psalms 139 that says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart."
Yeah.
The only person who can truly help you to do a self-audit of yourself is God.
Yeah.
Because he sees everything. Our tendency when we're describing other people's behavior is we make them out to be a bad person. But when it's our behavior, we, couch it with the, mitigating circumstances and, I didn't know, and it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't intentional. So we're very quick to give an excuse for why we do the things we do.
It's the bias.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that verse that says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart," it's because God knows it's not easy for you to do that on your own, because we can easily make excuses for the things we do and honest to God believe we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I'm saying. And it's not just like this could happen to all of us, including us at this table. And I just think it's important, instead of, I think sometimes we focus on, this is going to be the year I do X, Y, Z. And by that, I don't just mean relationships. I mean, in general, this is going to be the year that I finally do this. It's good to set goals. Yes. However, I think what's most important is having that awareness that you can truly only get from God. Going back to that Johari window concept we discussed previously, there are certain things, it's hidden to you, it's hidden to others.
Yes.
Only God can reveal that to you. And in that growth process, you will be in a place to naturally attract what it is that you're looking for. A lot of us are so busy attracting certain goals that we're not even ready to have. If we had them, we'd fumble them.
Yeah,
a good example of that is money. Think about people who win the lottery and then next thing you know, they're broke and homeless. It was something that they were not prepared to handle. No. And that's why it's better to build money over time so that you learn how to manage it so that when you get more money, you stay on track.
Exactly.
But if you are coming to a lump sum and you were not prepared and you hadn't developed the discipline to maintain that money and you don't have anyone advising you, you lose it. And sometimes you're worse off than you were before.
Right. That's true.
It's the same with relationships.
That was literally what I was about to say. I think that for a lot of us, it's kind of like we want the house, but we don't want the foundation. But we don't recognize if you don't build the foundation correctly, the house will not stand.
Yeah.
So this is the time to kind of build the foundation and work on those things, asking God, search my heart, reveal things to me, help me to see what are my habits, what are my patterns, what are those negative beliefs or limiting beliefs keeping me stuck, and trusting that that's only going to make you ready for when you finally do meet your spouse. And again, being ready is not a condition, like you have to be perfect to have a spouse, because even after marriage, you're still going to be growing.
Right. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we always have things we can work on.
Yeah.
Always. I
For
actually
sure.
remember a time in my life where, and I was later, like, so I was not one of the people who wanted to be married early on.
Mm-hmm.
I struggled a lot. I think I talked about this in one of the episodes because of commitment issues.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember I got to a point and I wasn't even thinking about marriage. I found myself in a situation where I saw, not saw, let me not say saw, because I was told, it was a client telling me something. And it was a child, a teen girl, and basically saying how she was afraid of a parent figure just because of the way that he would react to certain things. And it was just a fear of being either verbally abused or physically abused. And it hit home. Like, and not because I was abused. That's not what I mean by that. But there were times where I would see kids behave in a certain way and you try to reprimand them. And back in the day, I would not seek to control the response. So it's just like, what are you doing? Like it's almost like common sense. When we grew up in the generation of people, hey, we got whoopings. Like our generation was very different. But when she said that, something in my heart broke because she was not only being impacted by the physical abuse, but at times she said the verbal abuse was worse than the physical.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, I remember going to bed and I prayed to God and I said, help me to control this. I never want to be in a place where I'm upset at my kids and I forget that they're kids and I act out in anger and my kids are just afraid of me.
Yeah.
I want them to know that love is present even in discipline. And I want them to know that what I'm doing isn't to hurt them, but it's to help them grow and be better.
Yeah.
And that was something I had to wait for God to do the work in me because naturally impulse control is not my forte. And over time, what I found myself doing was, whether it was with adults, whether it was with children, if I felt myself in a bad place where I was upset and dysregulated and emotional, I just have this cardinal rule that my friends and family know about. I don't speak. And the reason I don't speak is to maintain that control. When I'm in a calmer place, now we can address the issue. But prior to that, it's not a good idea. And I think if we're honest, even in our marriages, there are times where it's better keep quiet.
Yeah. That's true.
Keep quiet.
There's nothing wrong with taking a break, both of you guys going to become calm, and then later on tackling a subject.
Yeah. Then this is the prime time to practice. So even when you're not just in dating relationships, but I would even say friendships, there's a time to speak.
Yep.
And there's a time to be quiet.
Yeah.
And I think part of the process is discerning between those two and doing the thing that's wise at the time.
Exactly. And the Holy Spirit helps with that. It's just sometimes we're not sensitive to him. So we don't hear him when he's kind of like poking you in the shoulder, like, yo, don't say that. Like, no, like now is not the time.
Oh, we hear it.
Yeah. Or we hear it and we ignore it,
We're like, no.
But going back to what you said, now is the time to practice because, again, we're building the foundation.
Yep.
If you want a nice house, but you don't take the time to set up the foundation, you are going to have way more problems pop up on the back end. Yes, exactly. So it's better to kind of set up that foundation now where you ask God to search you, to help reveal things to you, to help you identify your patterns, disrupt them, even pay attention to how was I raised? How did I see my mom and dad interact with one another? Are there things that are negative, unhealthy, or dysfunctional in the way I related to my siblings? All of those things are things you can pray against so that you don't bring it into your future relationship. But if you're not doing the work to uncover them, you're just going to bring them.
Yeah. And just to be clear, I don't want people to misunderstand. You are not the foundation. The foundation is God. But you are, by allowing God to do the work in you, you are setting up the foundation for your future relationship.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that because now if you think you're the foundation of your marriage, that marriage is going to crash and burn.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of coming to terms with a cord of three is not easily broken. It's you, your spouse, and then there's God. And God will be the one that keeps you guys together because God knows each of your triggers. And during your single season is a prime time to learn to take those triggers to Him.
Yes.
So that when your spouse does something that offends you, you don't immediately attack or take it out on your spouse because you feel hurt or slighted in some way. But you take that hurt to the Lord so that the Lord can deal with your spouse, who will then resolve the issue with you. But if we're being reactionary and we haven't done the work, then it's going to set us up for a more difficult relationship in the long run. And that's not necessary.
Yeah.
I think a lot of things people think, oh, well, you know, marriage is hard and this and that. I'm not saying it's not. But I do think a big part of what makes it harder is not keeping God at the center.
Yeah. And I also think, too, that brings me to the point of it's important to pray for your future spouse that they're also doing the work. Because getting back to the whole idea of a cord of three strands is not easily broken, you're a strand, God is a strand, and your future spouse is a strand.
Right.
So praying that God, just like in the waiting, you are working on certain things, that your future spouse is also working on those things so that the two of you bring whole selves into your future relationship.
Right.
Because, you know, there's this idea out here that your partner completes you, but that's not what we believe as Christians. At the end of the day, God has to be the center and the foundation in order for your relationship to have success.
Right, right. Yeah. So I know a lot of y'all are worried about the outside, but you should be worried about the inside. When it comes to your spouse. Not saying that the outside doesn't count, but it's really important to be intentional about praying that they work through certain hurts and pains that they've dealt with so that they can not only show up for you, but also for your future children if you plan to have any. I think sometimes people forget you have to consider, is that somebody I would want to parent my son or daughter? And I think that that's a huge part of who you choose. We're not just selecting for ourselves, but we're selecting for the future.
Exactly.
And, you know, in this new year, we recommend taking a new approach where instead of focusing on obtaining, we focus on becoming. And in becoming, I think we will attract what we're looking for when God says the time is right.
And with that, I feel like that was the perfect ending to this episode. So thank you guys for tuning in. Please make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on all platforms, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode.
Until next time, Happy New Year.
Bye.